Here with old friend Robert Spencer, speaker at the Young Americans Foundation. Robert, first thing, I noticed that your talk generated more questions than any other speech here.
That's interesting.
And I found that very, very interesting.
Well, you know, this is a burning issue these days, and people aren't getting the truth, and they know they're not getting the truth from Barack Obama and even from the Republican establishment. And so they're looking for the answers to what's going on.
Now, one of the things you've mentioned, and you're often accused of twisting Islam or playing with Islam, but you used as the prop today a copy of the Quran that you bought in England with annotations from an Islamic expert who died in, I believe he died in 1989, did you say? 1979, long before the time of the Islamic State. Isn't it necessary to understand Islam to understand what these preachers are actually saying about it?
That's what they say. They say, you want to understand what we're doing, read the Quran. They say, we're doing this because the Quran says whatever it says. And so, therefore, the obvious answer to understanding their motives and goals is to read the Quran.
Now, you also talked about strength of culture, that one of the things that the West doesn't have anymore is confidence and belief in its own culture. Is this due to the increase in secularism from the time that we had Judeo-Christian values and we've basically become two nations?
I don't know that it's secularism as such, but it certainly is the leftist indoctrination that dominates public education nowadays and makes people think that Western civilization is something bad and not to be valued, not to be revered, but something to be apologized for. That racism, colonialism, and imperialism are its hallmarks, and that it has no positive values to balance that out. That is the big problem that I think has caused the cultural crisis we have today.
Now, you mentioned the American Freedom Defense Institute. I understand you had a big victory this week. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. In Philadelphia, they were not going to run our ads calling attention to Islamic anti-Semitism. And we have sued on free speech grounds, on First Amendment grounds. And we've sued on free speech grounds before in other cities. We always win because the First Amendment is still there. But what people don't realize is how severely it is being challenged. And this is a big problem. We won this, but now the authorities have said they're going to change the rules so that they won't accept any ads of the kind that we put in. And this is just another attempt to make an end run about the First Amendment. We're going to be challenging that as well.
Finally, you talked a lot about how we have to bring up the examples in order to win the argument. And one example that constantly comes to my mind is Molly Norris, the American cartoonist, still in hiding after a fatwa against her. How is it that she is never mentioned or even remembered now that she's been in hiding for 4 years for fear of her life?
Well, you know, there's one group that remembers her very well, and that's the Islamic State, which recently put out a hit list of the top people they want to see dead, and Molly Norris was still on it.
I must confess, I did not know that.
Yes, absolutely. And it was all people who have drawn cartoons of Muhammad or published cartoons of Muhammad, or who have Terry Jones, the guy who burned the Quran. And so this is exactly the flashpoint where we have to stand up against violent intimidation and say, we're not going to let thugs dictate what we can say and what we're going to not say. This is why Pamela Geller had the brilliant idea of having the Muhammad cartoon contest and exhibit that we're going to have in Dallas.
I've sent an entry for that, actually. That appeared on the site. And Robert, where can people find more of your information? And please plug your latest book as well.
I'm at jihadwatch.org, which is updated many times daily with news and commentary about jihad activity of all kinds. And the next book will be out August 17th, and it's The Complete Infidel's Guide to ISIS, coming August 17th from Regnery Publishing. Get yours at any self-respecting bookstore.
Robert Spencer, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.